In today's video, we will be looking at everything related to combat. For the general structure of this video, I will be looking at my personal selection of combat overhaul mods with a special emphasis on more responsive combat in both first and third person. First off, let's start with the core setup. Starting off with ADXP or Attack D-Star experience for our attack behaviors and animations. This mod ensures that all the animations we will put on top of our combat setup work like they're supposed to be, and so that we're not T-posing around. This is also the foundation for any other types of combat animations you might want to use on top of it, since you don't have to strictly follow this animation setup, which I'm using. Another important feature of MCO is that it finally removes the dreaded ice skating bug that has been around in the vanilla game for years. Now your movement is much more smoother, and in general, the mod changes how animations play out for your character, giving you a lot more freedom and movability instead of being locked to a certain grid, which is, common for Skyrim, or was common. However, with this mod, you're finally able to move around more freely, and you're not bound to directional attacks anymore, which makes this mod quite game-changing actually. For our second mod, I'm using Valhalla Combat. One of the main features of this mod is that it completely reworks the stamina system within the game. In vanilla, the stamina system had quite a major flaw in my opinion, and that was the issue that light attacks never used any stamina whatsoever. With Valhalla Combat, however, every attack and move you make can cost you stamina, forcing you to be more mindful of your attack commitment. If your character runs out of stamina, you will enter an exhausted state, in which you will not recover any stamina, making it impossible for you to dodge or deal heavy attacks to your enemies, adding another layer of difficulty to combat. Another main feature of this mod is the ability to perform timed blocks on enemies, which gives you the opportunity to regain any lost stamina and to also stagger your enemies, giving you an advantage to incapacitate your foes. Another core mod which I suggest you use is one-click power attack. With this mod installed, you can chain light and heavy attacks together. The mod achieves this by mapping heavy attacks on a separate key on your keyboard or mouse. For convenience sake, I would also recommend you get the MCM loader for this mod, so you don't have to fiddle around with any INI files. The mod also adds quite a convenient MCM menu from which you can change certain settings and also remap your heavy attack key. The last core mod is called Precision. What this mod does is fixing the rather inaccurate reach and hitboxes of all the weapons in the game, and therefore resulting in a more satisfying combat experience. Another feature which is included in this mod is weapon trails, which just makes your weapon swings look that much cooler. It also features both hit stop and camera shake, which adds a camera shake effect to your character as well as the enemy that's attacking you. All of these features mentioned can be adjusted via the integrated MCM menu, giving you a lot of customizability and freedom to toggle features you like or don't like too much, on or off. With the core mods out of the way, let's shift our focus onto third-person animations, which is the bread and butter for a lot of combat setups. One of my go-to animation replacers is Skyrim's animation pack. This animation pack adds animations that are more on the flashy side, so they might not be for everyone. However, it is a good starting point, especially if you like very fast-paced combat. The animations replace all current weapon animations you have in your game, and the mod comes with a nice installer too, so you can pick and choose what kind of animations you want for your game. If fast-paced combat is not up your alley and you prefer something more slow and tactical, then I would suggest you give Smooth's animation catalog a go. There are a lot of animations for you to choose from, giving you a wide variety of options for the style you want to go for. I also want to include bow combat into this list, since bow combat is an aspect that is overlooked a lot of the time. One of my favorite mods for enhancing bow combat is Smooth's Bow Rapid Combo V3. This mod completely reworks the bow animations, and even adds dedicated dagger, dodge, and unarmed animations specifically tied to this mod. These animations are fully autonomous and do not conflict with any other animation mods, which gives this mod a rather unique feeling in my opinion. The next few mods which I want to showcase focus more on character movement and behavior, which is a very important factor when it comes to combat. First off, we will start this section with the most important movement mod, called True Directional Movement. With this mod installed, our character is now able to utilize 360-degree movement, similar to most modern games that came out in the, past few years. This mod is a must-have in my opinion because it makes the game feel so much more modern and you have free movement, which is quite nice. Furthermore, the mod also adds some nice new features like target lock-on, which makes combat much more digestive. Another mod that we will need for our overhaul is a dodge mod. There are a number of those on the Nexus, and which one you want to use is up to personal preference. I personally use the ultimate dodge mod, and I use the dynamic dodge mod for better roll and step dodge animations. What's also quite nice about the ultimate dodge mod is that NPCs are now able to utilize dodges as well, which can be toggled on or off via the MCM menu. This added ability makes combat a lot more challenging, and is also great for expanding and closing the distance between an enemy, making combat overall a bit more tactical. For movement animations, I use a variety of them. For normal walking and sprinting animations, however, I use Ivor's movement animations. This mod replaces all the walking and sprinting animations of the player character with the ones found in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. For sprinting animations, I use Smooth's dynamic sprint animations, which randomizes weapon movement and sprint movement every time you press that shift key to sprint. Lastly, I use Smooth's moveset, which at its core reworks the equipping and unequipping animations of all the weapons within the game. This mod is perfect for some added immersion, and it also enhances the transition from combat to non-combat idols, leading to a very smooth and seamless experience. Now let's move on to NPC Combat. The most obvious mod in this section will be Scar. This is especially important since it overhauls NPC Combat quite a lot. With Scar installed, NPCs will use the same animations as the player. NPCs now use these animations more effectively and naturally, leading to a better and more engaging combat experience. Furthermore, if you want to give NPCs different movesets, then I would recommend you install the Desert Race animation pack by Temin for some great looking animations and some much needed variety. Moving on from animations, with a mod that adds a bit more to the difficulty of combat, especially when facing multiple enemies. The mod Combat Pathing Revolution, or CPR for short, is a mod that overhauls and improves the AI pathing framework. This makes Skyrim's NPCs behave more closely to those in modern action RPGs. Now NPCs actually take a more tactical and smarter approach to attacking you, compared to just dogpiling you like idiots. Your camera is another important aspect of a modern combat overhaul, so I would recommend you install the only camera mod you will ever need, SmoothCam. With plenty of camera presets to choose from to customize your experience even further, this mod is a must-have for sure. Another big part that might not be that necessary for combat, but is rather for enhancing the overall feel and immersion, are combat effects. I'd like to start off with weapon sounds, and I think these play the biggest role when it comes to immersion. One mod that I personally use in my setup is Skyborn FX. This mod adds Dark Souls inspired weapon sounds to weapon swings, block sounds, as well as hitting objects. In my opinion, these sounds are great and give a lot of your weapons a more meatier and heavier sound. Moving on from weapon sounds, we will be taking a look at some particle effects. Do you enjoy over-exaggerated particle effects when two swords clash with each other? Well, I certainly do. With the mod Simple Block Sparks, you certainly can get some of that sweet dopamine release. However, if you want to improve on the brutality of combat, I have a few mods that might be worth your while. Bloodshed is a perfect pick for this segment. All it does is just increase the blood splatter amount of the enemies. A simple mod that will add quite a lot to your gameplay. Speaking of brutality, if you ever wanted to bash someone's head in with the hard day at work, the mod Maximum Carnage has you covered. The mod has a rather simple premise, yet it adds so much to combat overall that for me, it almost feels like it's part of the game now. Furthermore, you can also tweak some settings in the added MCM menu, where you can turn off effects or some sound effects too. All in all, this mod is certainly not a necessity. However, it's a really fun addition to the game. Another mod that is a great addition to this segment is Dynamic Impact / Effects. This mod adds various particle effects when hitting enemies. The effect changes depending on the type of enemy you hit. For example, humanoid enemies will splatter blood. Undead enemies like Draugrs or skeletons will release a cloud of dust. And metal enemies like Dwemer Centurions will release a barrage of sparks. This makes combat feel a lot more impactful and dangerous, and this mod works perfectly in tandem with the aforementioned Bloodshed mod. To tie off this list, I want to once again shift our focus to an aspect of combat that gets overlooked quite a lot, especially since third-person animations are basically the meta. However, for all you first-person enjoyers out there, I would recommend you install comprehensive first-person animation Overhaul. That's a mouthful. This mod adds or overhauls every single weapon animation in the game for the first-person perspective, and even adds new magic animations for magic users as well. All in all, this mod is great if you enjoy a more vanilla experience, but without the clanky vanilla animations. Alright, to basically, finish this whole segment, here's some quality of life mods which I want to include, which can make combat a little bit more rounded, I would say. One mod I would highly recommend you use is Simply Balanced, and the reason being for being included into this showcase is because with many combat mods installed, NPCs can become a bit overpowered. However, with Simply Balanced, you can mitigate this issue and have a fighting chance against your enemies again. Speaking of balancing things, another very important mod you should use is the Scar limitation patch. The reason being is that when you have Scar installed, NPCs will continuously attack you without stopping, adding to increased difficulty and you dying a lot. With this patch, however, NPCs can become aware that their stamina is 0 and you can have a fighting chance against these enemies again. Another very important mod is the dual casting fix. This is a mod that is actually critical to all combat mods, including MCO, Blade and Blunt, and so on. And this basically fixes an error within the vanilla game where NPCs who have ranged abilities will, spam magic attacks and ranged attack. Another great mod which I would highly recommend is the wider block angle. This mod is especially important if you like to play in first person. It makes combat a bit more connecting, I guess, if that's the right word. It just increases the block angle from which you can block attacks, basically. And lastly, the No BS AI projectile mod is very vital to this mod list, and I would recommend you get it as well, since most mods, or a lot of mods, especially combat overhauls like MCO, where enemies tend to spam magical attacks or ranged attacks a lot, and you won't be able to dodge these. And with the No BS AI projectile mod, you'll have a better chance at anticipating ranged attacks, and you'll be able to survive a little bit longer. I will also provide this spreadsheet in the video description from where you can get an overview of all the mods I used or covered in this video, and I'll also add various bug fixes and patches which you can use for your setup specifically. And I will also add the requirements you will need to get this whole setup running, so you're not missing out on anything. So yeah, and that sums it up for this video. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel and endorse any mods you enjoy. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.